I'm sure a lot of you have probably asked yourself what would have happened if we made paleo-accurate dinosaurs instead of roided up monsters. Would the park be safe, or would the casualties now be far greater due to evolution's first assassins? How would the events in Jurassic Park play out if the dinosaurs were replaced with real ones? From lion-sized dromaeosaurs to flesh-eating bulls capable of camouflage, could nature's OGs outdo Wu's genius? This is going to be part 2 of this mini-series, if you want to call it that. You can check this video out if you want to see part 1, which covers the dinosaurs you don't see in this video. Before we get into it, roughly 80% of you guys who watch these videos are not subscribed, so if you enjoy this type of content, hit the buttons down below, as it's the best way to support the channel right now. There is also a Discord in the link below for you guys to join. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. The Raptors of Jurassic Park are hands down the worst thing you could run into on the island. Aside from the throwdowns, of course, even though they're kinda soft cannon. You can stay still for a Rex and outmaneuver the Spinosaurus, but once you're caught out in the open with these things, there's nothing left for you to do other than pray for a quick death. And if it was the novels, you sure weren't gonna get that. These modified Velociraptors were 12 feet long and pushed 400 pounds. If that wasn't enough, they have enough intelligence to trick humans and set traps for them, with the variants on Isla Sorna showing this. The paleo-accurate Velociraptor is, well, not exactly like this. I'm just kidding, they're nothing like this. They were 6 feet long and weighed as much as a big turkey, and they had feathers. In terms of intelligence, they're nowhere nearly as smart as Jurassic Park's. As a matter of fact, they aren't even the smartest dinosaurs. You guys remember back in the day when it was thought that Velociraptor and Troodon were the smartest dinosaurs ever found? Well, that's not exactly true. Yes, the Velociraptor was smart for an animal of that time, but even some of the largest theropods like the T-Rex were thought to have been on the same level or even smarter. And that's not all, there is no definitive proof that supports Velociraptor being a pack hunter. The Deinonychus is one of the few dromaeosaurs out there who we have strong evidence suggesting that they may have been pack hunters, but even this is unknown. So out of the gate, it's pretty clear to see that InGens were much more deadly than Mother Nature's. The Raptors in the movies were actually based on a Deinonychus, I think, which I guess could make more sense lengthwise, but even Deinonychus was around 160 to 180 pounds, which is still dwarfed by the park's Raptors. Now I could cheat and probably just compare another dromaeosaur to the park's Raptors like a small Dacaraptor or even a Utahraptor, but I won't. I'm going to be replacing InGen's creations with a direct paleo-accurate counterpart. With how many different Raptor scenes there are in the 3 movies, I'm just going to be going over some of the main interactions. In one of the most well-known scenes where the Raptors checked the kitchen for Lex and Tim, they were able to look through the kitchen door and chase the kids around. At one point even matching the power of 2 children pushing against the door. First take is that the real Velociraptor hilariously wouldn't even be able to peek through the door because they're too short. They would somewhat take their time just like the ones in the movie, moving cautiously as they don't know where the kids are and wanting to avoid injury if possible. If it wasn't obvious by now, we're adding the same type of aggression InGen's Raptors have to the real one. Because if not, the Raptors wouldn't even be next to people. A 35-pound animal isn't just going to try and attack something that towers over them, unless it's for defense or they're really desperate. Because even if the average Joe were to throw a punch in the right place, it would break the bones of the dromaeosaur. Lex and Tim ultimately would have gotten away the same way, but not with that much desperation, because believe it or not, the real Velociraptor's top speed was 28 miles per hour. And that isn't nowhere close to the 50 to 60 mile per hour speed Muldoon gave the park's Raptors. With that said, they wouldn't have slipped like the big one did on the floor. A lower center of gravity and a smaller size would have kept it on its feet. But all at a loss, I'm afraid, because if Tim, who's about 100 pounds give or take, were to get scared and kick the animal, it would have been sent a decent distance away and the 2 kids could have gotten away regardless. Could the 2 Velociraptors kill Lex and Tim? Absolutely. They may have not had brute force on their side, but with their sickle claw and teeth, they could have mauled the children and they could have died due to blood loss. So for this scene, Lex and Tim would have had a survivability rate of around 85% give or take. The clever girl scene also would have been much different. While Muldoon got ambushed and then easily overpowered by the bioengineered menace, he would have been able to throw the real one off of him, especially with how fit he was. While I don't think the real Velociraptors would have deliberately set up a trap like that, one still could have tried to ambush him and go unnoticed. I mean, if timed just right, it could have sent its large toe claw into Muldoon's neck, causing him to bleed out. But that's the worst case scenario. So far the real Raptors have just been pushed around, and honestly it doesn't get much better. The ending where the 2 Raptors trap Grant and the other 3 in the building and then fight the T-Rex would have never happened, or it would have been much less likely. There is a chance that the 2 Raptors could have trapped them in the same little ball, believe it or not. For example, when one of those 30 to 50 pound street dogs start running at you, do you just stand your ground or do you book it? While those people could have easily overpowered the 2, the thought of being bitten by them isn't a nice one. As for the T-Rex, well, their bravery may finally wear off, because this was something 3 tons heavier than the Tyrannosaur they naturally had to deal with in Mongolia, being the Tarbosaurus. So when they see Rexy, they're gonna get out of there fast. which weirdly enough would leave Grant and the rest in more danger because Rexy would now have to investigate them. But in the off chance that they do decide to pick a fight with Rexy, they're gonna get put down way faster than the modified versions. To cut to the chase, in the Lost World, all of those mercenaries in the long grass would have wiped those raptors out. While the raptors on Sorna may have been able to sweep grown men off their feet, these guys couldn't do that. The only ways they could have put one of those men on the floor was if they jumped on their head or upper body to throw them off balance. To be honest, I could only see like one casualty max if we replaced the Lost World raptors with the real ones, and that's only because the rest of the group probably wouldn't notice someone being brought down and mauled by 3 or 4 turkeys with teeth. As for Malcolm and Kelly, they would have probably been fine too. With how defensive Malcolm was being, and it possibly being a situation where he'd be forced to fight back, he could kill a single Velociraptor. Granted, with a lot of bite marks on his hands that would need stitches. As for when Kelly kicked the striped raptor, by the way, I can't be the only one, but did any of you wonder or kind of waited for her to slip when she swung to kick the raptor? No? Just me? Well, I guess I'm the problem. Anyway, a direct kick to the hollow bone theropod's chest would have already led to smashed ribs, which would have killed it regardless even if it wasn't impaled with a spike. I'm not even going to go too into detail with the ones from Jurassic Park 3. All of those traps set by the quilled raptors would have never been set, so the lab scene wouldn't have happened. The scene where they used the guy as bait wouldn't have happened either. For one, they wouldn't have enough power to paralyze him like that so quickly, and two, they wouldn't have enough knowledge to know exactly where to hit without somehow killing the man in the process. Overall, the best they could have done was set an ambush, and as a pack of 5 against 5 adult humans, it's already a losing battle, especially against a trained mercenary. The only scene where I could see these things geeking out to the point where they'd feel the need to risk injury just to kill some of the people was if they caught Billy in the act stealing their eggs. Most animals in nature accept that their baby or egg is gone after a day or two, so they don't look. This is seen in birds too, which is what the raptors are more closely related to. While Velociraptor mongoliensis wouldn't have caused much of a problem on the island like the one in the movies, the next dinosaur turns the tables and is actually larger and stronger than the franchises. If you thought the Carnotaurus was featured in the franchise only when Jurassic World came out, you'd be wrong. They actually make an appearance in the Lost World novel, and while not being quite as big as Jurassic World's, they got a lot more respect from the other carnivores they shared the island with. While T-Rexes may bully Carnos in the events of Jurassic World, they wouldn't dare step into the territory of a novel Carnotaurus when it turns to night. The simple reason for that is their camouflage. While not being quite as big as the ones in the movie, they are able to blend into every and any background. And I mean any one. A chain link fence? Done. A tree? No problem. The brick pattern on the wall? No challenge at all. With that in mind, would the events that happened in the novel be the same if the real Carnotaurus was brought in? The real Carnotaurus, if we use some of the larger estimates, was around 9 to 10 meters long and could have pushed 2 tons in weight, which is already larger than the ones from the novels, which are a bit over 7 meters long and a little over 1 ton. In terms of speed, they're pretty close, believe it or not, with both capable of pushing 30 miles per hour, with the one from the novel being slightly faster. With the stats out of the way, let's set the stage. When Levine and his guy Diego arrived on Sorna, they heard loud calls, which were the Carnos, and they appeared to be communicating with each other. With Levine seeing a distorted tree but not thinking anything about it, until Diego was dragged away by one and then another ran straight towards him. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, he ran as fast as he could, but he didn't know where he was going. The Carnotaurus managed to catch up to him but caught his backpack. He managed to take it off just in time and escaped while it was distracted. His guy Diego, however, wasn't so lucky. So first things first, Carnotaurus was solitary, it's almost certain. So if 2 real Carnotaurs were in the same territory, it would likely break out into a fight unless it was a female in a male's territory or vice versa. And even if this was the case, it's unlikely that they could have coordinated an ambush like the ones in the novel. But let's say that the 2 happened to be in the same area without noticing each other, because they were both locked on to Levine and Diego. With how dense the foliage was in Sorna, they could have hidden in there. They couldn't do it in the open next to a tree like the one in the novels, but under some heavy vegetation they could lay in wait there, and as one springs into action and kills Diego, the other, knowing the remaining human is on high alert, would reveal itself too. Levine would have gotten caught too like he was originally, only this time there's a higher chance that it grabs his head instead of his backpack. With it being over 9 feet tall, it could just snatch him by the skull and shake him around like a pit ball does to an unattended toddler. It also could have just targeted his backpack too. Since it was a larger target, it could easily reach, but I don't think it would have stayed distracted on it too long after realizing it wasn't edible, and would soon go after Levine and catch up to him. To be very honest, the chances of Levine surviving are about the same, with the real life version being slightly worse, possibly due to it more than likely not being too preoccupied with the backpack. In a different interaction where a Carno pair came into contact with Dr. Thorne, they don't attack him despite him being relatively close, instead remaining confident in their camouflaging abilities. Only until a light is shined on them and their cover is blown do they make a move, but Soren just manages to get into a shed where they couldn't follow. I'm not too sure what kind of shed it was, but if it was the one I'm thinking about, wouldn't they have been able to break at least some parts of the entrance and find a way in? Anyways, they didn't try, and soon gave up after Ellie kept shining lights in their faces, forcing them to constantly change color. The real Carno would have never gotten that close to Soren given the location he was. They can't camouflage, so they couldn't have been in front of the fence. They needed to be more in the open, which would blow their cover. So if the pair were desperate, they would have had to make a mad dash for it, which would give Soren enough time to get into the shed, considering how close he was to it. They couldn't get through the door frame since they were far too big, but I think they could have somewhat made an opening if it was one of those thin metal sheds, or one with rotten wood. I mean, hey, we see predators in the wild somehow get things that hide in places you'd think they couldn't go. But let's say it's an indestructible shed, then the outcome is going to remain the same as the original. The light is going to upset the animals, not because of camouflage or anything, but because if someone was shining a blinking floodlight in your face, I'm sure you'd leave the area too. So overall, if I had to give a verdict, I'd say that the novel Carnotaurus are still slightly more dangerous overall, due to their camouflaging abilities. I mean, something capable of blending into any pattern is more dangerous than something that's a little more powerful but can be seen earlier on. In a forested area, both are equally as deadly, but in an open area, the novel one poses a greater threat despite being smaller. The last theropod on the list is the smallest dinosaur ever made in the franchise, yet they created some of the most brutal scenes we've ever seen. The Compies are kind of the punching bag of the franchise, as everything even slightly larger usually just sees them as food. With that said, as a group they can turn deadly, especially with their pack size. It can range from as low as 10 individual to more than 30. If that's not enough, these animals have venom. Well, at least in the novels, but it's implied that they do have it in the Lost World too. Their venom acts as a type of sedative, which stops spraying their tracks and makes them feel more relaxed and throw all of their worries away, where they then do what they have to do. Like the Velociraptors, there isn't any definitive proof saying that the real Compsognathus hunted in packs, although there was a chance, so we're gonna say that they do for this scenario. They also obviously didn't have venom, so it's not looking good so far. The scene where the little girl is killed could be a possibility, especially if the animals were inquisitive after she decides to feed them, but I don't think they would do enough damage to kill her before the adults could have reached her despite their numbers. One thing would have almost certainly not have happened however, and that is Dieter dying. In the Lost World, the Compies throw away their caution and go right after Dieter the moment he gets hurt, and were able to somehow kill him. While it's not confirmed, this is why it's more than likely that the Compies in the Lost World had venom like the novel counterparts, because Dieter was a trained fit man who could have easily overpowered them after a certain period of time. So if the paleoacrid Compsognathus was to be put there, he would probably have lived. Firstly, they would have booked it if Dieter did a mock charge or something, and even if they did attack, he could have killed enough of them before it got too difficult. I mean, animals in this franchise have insane durability, but real life things are still bound to the laws of physics. All Dieter really has to do is put his thumb and index finger between one's head and crush it. The same would kind of apply to Hammond in the novel too, because he was eaten alive without putting up much of a fight because he was envenomated. The real animals don't have this buff and would have been fought off despite Hammond having an injured ankle. There is one scene that could have happened if the real Compies were in the place of Injuns, and this time it would have arguably been worse. If you don't know, there's a horrific scene where a baby is eaten by some Compies who came through a window after the dinosaurs were free in the novel. The midwife decided to go and check up on the baby but was horrified to find the infant already dead, with majority of its face already eaten. The one and probably only decent thing, if you could even call it that, which happened was that the venom was a sedative and the infant probably didn't feel that much pain. But if it was the real Compy pack, then the child would have felt every bite and tear as the animals eat it alive, and this time it would have cried out loud enough for the midwife to hear and come up early. But even if she had rushed, chances are that the blood loss would have already taken the infant's life regardless. This is something that has a high chance of happening even if the animal was itself, because as we see time after time again, if there's an opportunity for an easy meal, predators are going to take it. So that's going to be it for this one folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to join the Discord in the link below, so I could hear the opinions of you guys with topics like this. With that said, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video.